welcome to the Pittsburgh Nerd Podcast vlog. I'm Sean, I'm your host, and it's Saturday, so that means this is the wrestling report. And big week in AEW with their Grand Slam event at the Arthur Ashe Stadium in New York. 20,000 plus people in attendance. That is a very, very big hoodoo, if you will. Great show. It was a pay-per-view value show, I'd say, with the matches that they had. I starting with Dynamite, I think, and it's been spoken about ad nauseum. I'm not going to give my 2 cents other than it was an amazing match between Kenny Omega and Bryan Danielson, and I expected nothing less and got more than I could have hoped for, if that makes any sense. I thought the rest of the matches were very good. I thought the main event, I thought it was very cool that the Dynamite main event was Brit Baker against Ruby Soho. I think most people would tell you the pay-per-view situation, that wouldn't have been the main event. But for Dynamite, based upon how they did their timing, especially with the 30-minute draw with Omega and Danielson, it's still cool that Brit got the main event, and I thought her and Ruby Soho put on a good match. I thought overall the card was very, very good. The Darby Allin Sting match, Sting, stealing the show there, and nobody has a problem with that, So there was a lot of good stuff on the show, and you go to Rampage on Friday, and that Punk Will Hobbs match was very, very good. The Lights Out match at the end was good. It wasn't phenomenal, I thought. I don't, it was tame by AEW standards at this point for a match of that nature, I thought. And that's fine. I mean, it was still a good match. I enjoyed it. The 6-man match with the Super Click against the Jurassic Express and Christian Cage was a very good match. I like everything that we're seeing here. AEW's put on a hell of a show. And I feel like, again, this is like another momentum builder. We're, about a month off of, or less than a month off of All Out. You have this massive show, pay-per-view quality show, if you will. And it once again builds more and more momentum for the program. And I mean, and this was a show that got a ton of press. There was a ton of, like, in the Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday leading into this, there was a lot of press I saw, lots of interviews with Tony Khan, we're talking about how excited everybody was to be in New York, to be in Arthur Ashe Stadium, to be in this big building, and kind of claim that as their own. The WWE Madison Square Garden will always be the mecca of pro wrestling for WWE, and for them to kind of stake a claim a little bit in New York, and take Arthur Ashe Stadium, some places not known for wrestling, but can be. This can be a big deal situation for them. I think it was everything's just been really, really well done, and I think the momentum they've been carrying off of All Out hasn't been lost. They've just been building upon it, and I think it's something that you could say it's tough to screw up. And it is. When you have the people that you've got, when you have CM Punk, when you have Bryan Danielson, when you have Adam Cole, when you have Ruby Soho, when you have this level that the WWE is getting rid of or letting go, when you have that level of talent, for the pro wrestling fan, it's tough to screw that up, to me. Unless you were to completely bury all those guys, and they're not. Tony Khan, I have my problems with him as the booker, as the head, like the guy writing the shows. I think he's learning from his mistakes in the past. I think he's somebody, like I've always heard Britt Baker say, she didn't have an NXT to learn at. They didn't have a performance center. Dynamite was their performance center, and you can see like with a lot of this talent, like Darby Allin, like her, like Jungle Boy, even MJF to a certain extent. They've been growing, because they're getting the reps, because they're getting in the ring, because they're doing this is. But at the beginning, none of them had any of this experience, so this is something completely new to them. I think it's the same with Tony Khan. I think, we're 2 years into Dynamite at this point, and now he's kind of figuring it out a bit more than he did week 1 of Dynamite. So, I think that, they're hitting their stride. I'm not going to sit here and say, well, they're threatening WWE. I mean, WWE's WWE. I think it's tough to threaten them anymore, but I think what they've done is they've positioned themselves as a clear alternative to the WWE for someone like me and for many other fans out there who look at that product and are, they're upset with sports entertainment. They want pro wrestling, and I think that's, like at the end, that's the catchphrase that I hear Excalibur say. AEW is the home of professional wrestling. Vince McMahon. You go all the way back to Paul Heyman in 2002. You made pro wrestling a dirty word. And it's true. They're not pro wrestling. They're sports entertainment, and I think that's the biggest difference. In the product, and I think you see it both on Raw, SmackDown, and in NXT. They're not trying to be that, where I think AEW is striving to be more like WCW, more like ECW, with in all honesty, with the level of their hardcore matches, with the level of their lights out matches and things of that nature. I think Tony Khan's watched a lot of Paul Heyman tape. I think if Paul Heyman ever becomes available, I think Tony Khan would scoop him up. But it's one of those. It is definitely one of those things where they've definitely positioned themselves as being an alternative. They may never beat WWE in the ratings. They may come close to beating WWE in the ratings, but it doesn't matter. I mean, what they've done is they're not trying to be the worldwide leader. They're just trying to be an alternative to what is the worldwide leader. And I think they've done a very good job of positioning themselves to be that more than any other company ever has. I know, people will say, well, TNA was putting up better numbers back in 2002, 2003, but I will also tell you that at that time that there was still a leftover amount of wrestling fans from the Attitude Era, from the Monday Night Wars. I mean, there was 10 million people watching wrestling on Monday nights in the 90s, and now on Monday nights Raw draws 1.7 million. SmackDown draws 2-point-somewhat million, and that's on Fox. So, there's been a drastic decrease, but, for Vince McMahon, as long as, they're making money, it's all, that loss of 9 million fans who were watching pro wrestling at that time, he doesn't care about those. He's going to placate to his base. And why shouldn't he? That's what he does. And those people aren't going anywhere. That's the key. Those people are not going. They will stick it out no matter how bad the product is, because that's what they've grown up with. So big week in AEW. The biggest takeaway I took, and this was the booing of Cody Rhodes. Now, I will tell you, I'm a Cody Rhodes fan. One of the reasons I've gotten back into watching pro wrestling is because of Cody Rhodes. When I think of AEW, especially the first year and a half, I think of Cody Rhodes. I think he was the heart and soul of the brand. You go back to the first Double or Nothing, and him coming out and taking the sledgehammer to the throne, and the place going wild. Cody was the chosen one. He was the guy. He was the face of AEW. He was the heart and soul of AEW, in my opinion. And I don't understand the fans turning like they have. He's positioned himself in a way he can never compete for the world title. And they've stuck to that stipulation. He had the match with Jericho at the first Full Gear, and he hasn't come anywhere near that title since. And there are those who say he should fight for the title. Particularly, there was we want Rhodes Omega. That was a big uproar at first, but now it's quieted down. So it's one of those things where I don't understand. I hear people talk about he thinks he's the Triple H of AEW, and I disagree. I think he's taken more major losses than anybody else on the roster. Right? You look at he lost to Jericho at Full Gear. He lost to MJF at the first Revolution. He beat Lance Archer for the TV title. He drops it to Brody Lee in devastating fashion. Now you could say he drops it at that time because he's going off to shoot his game show, which is fine, but still he could have dropped it in a different. He let Brody Lee beat the hell out of him and embarrass him. That match was meant to, and he comes back with the dog collar match. And it's a great match. But then he drops it to Darby. He's the reason Darby. He goes to the time of a draw with Darby at Fight for the Fallen or Fyter Fest. It was Fyter Fest. The first Fyter Fest, he goes to a time of a draw with Darby. Then, eventually he loses the title to Darby. Darby Allin is a creation of I'm not saying completely, but his star rose partly because of Cody Rhodes. He's put over guys. I think the feud with QT Marshall, the pay-per-view match with Anthony Ogogo, that was a disaster. I'm not going to deny that. But I get Malachi Black, he's that villain that you can love. I get that. As a guy who rooted for Ric Flair in the 80s, I completely get that. All my friends were Hulkamaniacs. All my friends used to tell me how, Ric Flair would get his ass kicked by Hulk Hogan. I just put up 4 fingers. So I get it. I completely understand why Malachi Black has the popularity that he does. He's a cool villain. I dig that. But yet, I'm surprised at the turn the fans have had on Cody Rhodes. And I don't want to say I'm disappointed. I'm shocked. Because he was our guy. He was. In all honesty, he was. He was our guy. He was the guy who took the bet for All Out. Or All In, excuse me. I always get them confused, I'm sorry. But he was the guy who took the bet for All In, in a way, yes, this is Tony Khan, and Tony Khan was looking to get into professional wrestling, around that time anyway. But I think, All In showed Tony Khan that this is viable, that this can be done, and a lot of dominoes fell, but I think Cody is, responsible for knocking over a few of those dominoes, and it showed at Double or Nothing, the Throne Breaker. Like I said, I mean, he went into that match as the heel, but came out as the babyface. And not that there was a double switch. Dustin was still a babyface. It was just, that was a show where the crowd's adulation was very, very high. We love you, Cody. Thank you, Cody. And now we're booing you, and I don't understand why. I can explain to me. I honestly would. If you could explain to me, why, because I don't feel like he books himself in a way that makes I don't feel like I get, you look at Triple H and you talk about the Reign of Terror in the early 2000s, and how he just destroyed everybody. I get that, and I get where that, and I like Triple H. I was a Triple H fan, but I was also a fan of Stone Cold. I was a fan of The Rock. I was a fan of Mick Foley. I was a fan of The Undertaker. I was a fan of all of those guys. I loved watching all of those matches. So, but I understand, from a booking standpoint, where you sit there and you say, well, Vince looked at, well, this is, my daughter's boyfriend, my son-in-law, and we're going to put him over. And many people think he doesn't deserve it. I disagree with that. I think he deserved to be the man. But I don't see Cody booking himself the same way. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. But I don't see it. Because I see Cody taking big losses at big moments. I look at Jericho match. And that, especially that stipulation, I thought for sure he was going to win the belt. I thought for sure. Why would you not let Cody Rhodes compete for the world title? That didn't make any sense to me. And it still doesn't. It was a bad stipulation. But then the MJF match. The road through hell that he went through. The whipping. Which is one of the greatest moments in Dynamite history. The cage match with Wardlow, which is one of those, again, great not one of the greatest, but a great moment. Where that match was amazing. Not all-time greats, but it was an amazing match. And then to go into Revolution and to lose, and to never continue that feud again, to have that feud put off, because here comes Lance Archer, here comes Jake the Snake, and then the pandemic hit, so that feud feels unresolved to me. It's like a weird thing. So I'm just gonna leave it at this. I could ramble on and on, but so it's just this thing of if you feel he's booking himself in a way that's burying other talent, I gotta disagree with you. Because I don't see it that way. Even when he beat Brody Lee in the dog collar match, and nobody knew that was going to be Brody Lee's last match, not even Brody Lee. That was a great match. That was a phenomenal match. He didn't bury Brody Lee. Brody Lee, and if circumstances had been different, he probably would have come out of that a bit stronger and a bit hungrier. He would have been a great villain going forward. So I'm curious to hear your thoughts on that, because the first Malachi Black match, I mean, that was in Jacksonville. That was it in Jacksonville? I can't remember. I think it was in Jacksonville. But I remember, I mean, it was that match of like, Cody, you could already hear the boos, and they were much louder in New York, and I'm curious, like, what do you think? Like, why do you think this is? Why have wrestling fans turned their back on Cody Rhodes? Is it the Rose to the Top, the reality show? Is it, you think he's distracted and should have his focus on AEW, or is it just his style, the way he presents himself, is no longer fun to you? I don't know. I'm interested. So that's it. That's the wrestling report for this week. I know WWE's got their big pay-per-view. I mean, it's not even a big pay-per-view. I shouldn't call it that. I mean, it's Extreme Rules. This is one of those. There are 4 major pay-per-views for WWE, and then there's everything else. And you almost know nothing's going to happen in those other pay-per-views. It's the big 4. So it's Extreme Rules. I think the Finn Balor Roman Reigns match will be good. Clearly, Roman's going to come out of that the winner. Outside of that, the Becky Lynch, Bianca Belair, that should be interesting. I hope that's a good match. There's nothing that like captures my attention, because you just know this is going to be a thing. So maybe there's a Brock Lesnar sighting. All right. On that note, the dreamer has awakened.